RIPTA Riders is an independent grassroots group with over 500 members that first came together in the summer of 2010 to oppose a fare increase and cuts in service to the Rhode Island Public Transit Authority, locally known as RIPTA. However, the story I'm going to tell you today begins a year later, in the summer of 2011, when much more significant cuts were proposed. In late July, after the General Assembly had failed to address RIPTA's ongoing budget problems, RIPTA was forced to hold public hearings across the state to talk about service cuts of up to 10% that would allow the agency to close its deficit. More than 600 people came out to the 12 meetings, and 277 testimonies were taken, all in support of preserving and expanding service. RIPTA riders sprang into action, creating the Save RIPTA petition, canvassing Kennedy Plaza, going to RIPTA board meetings, holding rallies outside City Hall and the State House, and turning people out to the hearings to amplify their outcries. Jeff Anderson of Providence had this to say: "Progress requires motion. With the proposed cuts to RIPTA, the motion required for Rhode Island to grow and advance will be choked off, strangled into stagnation and ineptitude." It was clear. RIPTA is a lifeline. There was great awareness among the public that RIPTA itself was not the problem. It was the way in which it received its funding. The gas tax is flawed, and it needs to be replaced or supplemented. That was the message RIPTA riders took to the State House. In 3 weeks, RIPTA riders gathered 1,500 signatures on the petition. After a rally on the steps of the State House, they served notice to the governor, speaker, and president of the Senate, presenting copies of all the collected names. The message was clear: keep our buses rolling. Will they listen? Few members of the General Assembly actually made it out to the public hearings to defend bus service that so many of their constituents rely on. Few even came out to witness the support that public transit has among the public, but thanks to the efforts of RIPTA riders, they were getting the message anyhow. The rallies and the petition captured massive media attention, culminating in a powerful op-ed that argued RIPTA is the public service where we can finally turn the tide of austerity and begin expanding services for the working class. City and town councilors around the state were certainly listening. 5 councils, Burrillville, Providence, Pawtucket, Bristol, and Warwick, quickly passed resolutions calling on the State House to ensure there would be no cuts. And yes, many in the General Assembly were listening too. When the legislature resumed session in January, RIPTA riders and a group of transit champions began to wrangle together an informal transit caucus in the House to help push through legislation that will give RIPTA the sustainable and adequate funding it has needed for so long. That bill is H. 7581, the Public Transit Investment Act. This legislation would provide the funding RIPTA requires to implement its strategic plan for service improvement and expansion. It does it appropriately, using vehicle registration fees. So let's do it. To let your representative know how you feel, simply click on the link below to send them a letter. And thank you, from RIPTA riders and for all working Rhode Islanders.